Hey everybody, it's Bobby Nahum here with AMAC Real Estate Company. Hope everybody's having a fantastic week. It is early fall already. It's hard to believe we're already in September. Running a little bit behind on my second quarter market update, but that's because I've been really busy out there selling houses. So today we're going to talk about the residential real estate market here in Leon County. We're going to cover some real estate metrics from the second quarter of this year, and we're going to compare those metrics to the second quarter of 2024 and see how our market's doing compared to where we were at a year ago. Some of the things we're also going to talk about, we're going to talk about just the general real estate market. We're going to also cover what I'm seeing in my day-to-day business in buying and selling homes, and just kind of give you guys a ground level outlook of what I'm seeing out there working with buyers and sellers here in Tallahassee. And then also going to give you some advice on some tips if you are buying or selling a house in today's market. So we saw kind of a shift in the second quarter of this year. Two big shifts that we saw. Number one, the number of homes available for sale are really starting to pile up out there. There's a lot more homes for sale than there were a year ago. And then the other big thing that happened is we actually saw a year-over-year, quarterly year-over-year decrease in home prices in Leon County. So that's actually, I think, the first quarterly decrease in home prices in quite some time. I want to say probably going back all the way to sometime in 2012. Since the end of the second quarter, we've had a little bit of a bounce back. So maybe what we saw in the second quarter of this year was just kind of a fluke, but we'll know soon enough, I guess, when we look at the third quarter stats. But those were the two main things. But let's jump right into it, y'all. We're going to talk first about listings. So the number of properties available for sale on the market went up by 16% in the second quarter compared to a year ago. That's a big jump, obviously. And, you know, we're still pretty low in terms of the number of properties on the market, especially if you go back to like 10 years ago. We're still well below that, but we are at the highest level of properties on the market since mid to early 2020. So now, with sales being normally the level of inventory we're at right now wouldn't be a big deal, but sales are so slow right now that any increase in inventory is going to have a dramatic impact on the market, and that's what we're seeing so far. So the next metric I want to talk about is the number of properties that sold. So as I just mentioned, sales have been sluggish. Second quarter, we saw a year-over-year drop of 2% in the number of properties sold here in Leon County, and we're at the slowest sales pace in a second quarter since second quarter of 2013. So there were 996 properties that sold in Leon County, residential properties that sold in Leon County in the second quarter of this year. And again, that's the lowest since second quarter of 2013, when we saw 971 properties sell. So I was in the business back then, and 2013 was really the first year that we started to come back from the doldrums of the Great Recession. So it was picking up, but it was still a pretty slow year back then. So and another way you can kind of gauge where we're at now. So if you go back to the pre-pandemic years, so 2017 through end of 2019, we're about 20% below the average number of sales per year in those 3 years. We're about 35 to 40% below where we were at during the pandemic boom, post-pandemic boom, late 2020 to mid 2022. So we're about 35 to 40% below that time period when sales were just going crazy. So, you know, and another thing you can kind of it's important to think about too. Why are sales so slow right now? So this is something I'd like to touch on. So if you go back to 2019, 59% of households in the United States could afford a median price home. Today, that number has dropped drastically down to 25%. So today's market, only 25% of households can afford, on their income, a median priced home in the United States. So the reason sales are so slow, y'all, is it's an affordability crisis we're seeing. So, and it's going to take a while for us to get out of that. Basically, what we're going to have to see happen is we're going to have multiple years where people's wages outperform home prices, basically. And if the interest rates go down, then that will help some because that will drop people's mortgage payments some. But I think that the lion's share of what's going to happen is just it's going to have to be a few years of people's wages accelerating at a higher rate than home prices are. So, and until that happens, there's just not going to be a lot of people out there that can afford most homes. So home prices are going to remain slow for the foreseeable future. So the next thing I want to talk about is home prices. So home prices in the second quarter were down by 3% compared to the second quarter of 2024. In the Northeast, and I think this is worth mentioning, in the Northeast quadrant of Leon County, which is where almost 50% of home sales happen, prices were down 6%. So if you own a house in Leon County in the Northeast quadrant of town, and you've been noticing that homes are selling for less than they were a year or two ago, you're not imagining things that's really happening, and that's because prices in the Northeast are down by about 6%. The Southeast quadrant actually fared the best in the second quarter, with home prices up by about 1%. But it should be noted that median prices in the Southeast quadrant are down 1%. So probably in reality, home prices are probably about flat in the Southeast quadrant. And across Leon County, the median price, which there's a difference between average and median, most people know that, but the median home price in Leon County, all throughout Leon County in the second quarter, was down 5%. So we're definitely seeing some adjustment on prices because things have gotten inflated. In July, we saw a little bit of a bounce back. August was kind of flat from a year ago. So we'll see. Maybe the second quarter was just kind of a temporary dip, but we'll know soon enough. I happen to think that we're probably going to see prices be very soft throughout the remainder of the year. We'll get more into that later, though. So the next metric I want to talk about is average days on the market. So the average time it took a home to sell was about 50 days in the second quarter of this year, which is exactly unchanged from the year before. It was also 50 days in the second quarter of 2024. So that's good that average days on the market did not go up. The next metric is what I call the sale price to listing price ratio. And what that is it's a percentage, and it measures how much on average homes are selling for compared to the listing price. So in the second quarter of this year, the average sale price to list price ratio was 98.16%. And that's down slightly from a year ago when it was 98.39%. So just a little bit of a drop. And one thing I think I should note, y'all, is that the sale price to list price ratio, it's using the list price where the property was listed at when it went under contract. So that doesn't mean that homes sold for 98.6 of the original list price. There's a lot of homes out there that had to drop their prices before it went under contract. So the 98.16 is the percentage of what it was, the home is the sale price expressed as a percentage of where the home was listed at when it went under contract. So just want to be clear about that. Distress sales only made up about 1.3% of total sales in the second quarter. That's slightly down from a year ago when distress sales made up 2.27%. Either way, distress sales are not having an impact on the market because they make up such a small percentage of overall sales. Distress sales are usually foreclosures or short sales, but they can be other type of sales such as bankruptcy sales, tax deed sales. If you have like a divorce sale or something, they have to unload the property quickly. Any type of sale where the nature of the sale itself lends the property to selling for under market value is a distress sale. But again, they're not really having an impact on our market, but I do like to mention what's going on with them because people like to know. So in my own day-to-day business, what am I seeing? The most noticeable thing I'm seeing is that home buyers have a lot more negotiating power than they did a year or two ago. When a property comes on the market, home buyers now have time to go look at the property, research comps, and then decide what they're going to offer and then make an offer. And they don't have to do it right away most of the time. And then there's usually a back and forth between the buyer and the seller, a negotiation, and the properties are usually selling for a little bit under what the homes are selling for, assuming the price of the home is, assuming the home is priced right. So you're seeing a lot of that. Obviously, we're seeing a lot more homes on the market. There's buyers have more choices. I'm working with several buyers right now, and buyers are just kind of taking their time looking at stuff right now because they can. Now, on the flip side of that, I have also been in multiple offer situations with buyers recently on certain homes. And that is still happening, but it's mainly happening with homes that are, number one, priced right, number two, they show really well, and number three, they're in high demand locations. So I just had a house that I made an offer on for a buyer client of mine out in Lafayette Oaks a couple weeks back, and there were 4 offers on it, and my client got outbid. He was the second highest, but people are still making strong offers on certain properties if the property is priced right, and that's the big thing. So so some things that I think we should look out for right now if you were buying a home. One thing that you should understand is basically that number one, there's more homes out on the market for sale. Number two, you've got more negotiating power, and number three, you really need to be conscientious of not overpaying for a home right now. I think home sales are going to be slow for quite some time. I think price growth is going to be slow for quite some time. And that goes back again to what we were talking about with affordability issues. I think it's going to take us a few years probably to get back to where we see really strong price growth because of the affordability issues we're having. Again, like I said, 6 years ago, 59% of households could afford a median price home. Today, that's 25%. So we got to get back up to a much higher number, I think, before we start to see stronger price growth. So if you're buying a home in today's market, it's very important to research comparable sales from the last 6 months or sooner. Don't look at homes that sold a year ago if you can avoid it. Also, it's important to look at what's out there on the market that's under contract right now, because that can give you an idea of where the market's at by looking at homes that are somewhere that are currently have an accepted offer. You can kind of gauge where the contract price is on that by the listing price and how long it was on the market before it went under contract. And then the last thing you want to look at is what other homes are currently available on the market. And then when you do that, you can kind of get an idea of the true value of the property you want to make an offer on and make an offer accordingly so you don't overpay. If you are selling a house right now, the biggest thing, y'all, is you just have to sellers really need to adjust to the reality of today's market. The reality is it's not a year ago, it's not 2 years ago, where you have no competition on the market and you can reach for sky-high prices right now. Your sellers are competing with more homes right now. Demand is still very slow, so you have to be competitive in your pricing. That is the main thing. The other thing too is homes need to show well, so they need to be in good condition, and you need to have a good marketing strategy that reflects the uniqueness of the home, as well as trying to target the right buyers and things like that. But the main thing, y'all, is pricing it, getting good photos, and having a good listing description. And as long as you do that, you should be getting showings on your house, and you should be going under contract if it's priced right. So what should we be looking out for in the months to come? The one thing is interest rates. So in September, the Federal Reserve is going to have their September Federal Reserve meeting, the board meeting, and they're going to determine whether or not they're going to reduce the federal funds rate. Most likely they are going to reduce it probably by 25 basis points, which is 0.25%. And then there's a good chance that they'll do one more drop before the end of the year. So by the time we get to the end of this year, if that happens, we'll probably see mortgage rates going down a little bit too, which will set us up for hopefully a stronger year in the beginning of 2026 on. So I think personally that by the spring of 2026, we'll start to see the market turn around a little bit better. I don't think it's going to be going gangbusters, but I think we'll start to see a low level of home appreciation again. I think that we'll probably start to see home sales slowly start to go up. So it's not going to be anything crazy, but it'll be a little bit better than this year. That's my opinion. The other thing we want to keep an eye on is inventory levels. Again, housing inventory is really the one thing that's driving the market right now. It's really what's changing the market. So if inventory levels continue to go up, I would expect to see home prices continue to remain soft, meaning like they're either going to slightly continue to be down or maybe flat at best. If we start to see inventory growth, the pace of inventory growth start to slow down or flatten out, then we may see prices also start to go up a little bit. So we'll see what happens. But overall, always a good time to buy or sell a home. If you're in the market to buy or sell a home and you're in a place in your life where that's what you need to do, don't try to time the market. Just throw it out there. If you're selling a house, get it on the market. You can sell a house at any time of the year. You just have to have a good strategy. If you're looking to buy a house and now is the time, there's no guarantees about what's going to happen in the future. So if you find the right house that's affordable for your budget, it's always a good time to buy a house. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you'll have any questions, feel free to leave. You can comment in the comment section, or you can shoot me a text or send me an email. And as always, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and give this video a like if you like the content. Thanks.